that you have made the time to join us. So grade 11s, get the best that you can out of these 2 hours. You've got lots of gold sitting there in front of you, so mine it. Okay? Enjoy yourselves, enjoy getting to know what other people in other areas of work are doing as well. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, let's go.
When I was in grade 11, which was 28 years ago. Yeah. So 28 years ago, I was like you guys. We didn't even call it grade 11, it was standard 9. And I found the step change from standard grade 10 to grade 11 was like real. And I found when I was done with all that, actually grade 11 was harder than matric. So if you get whatever you need to fix that, whatever you need to fix and get good at whatever now, because it makes grade 12 easy. So by the time I got to 12, I was like, okay, kind of got this. And then, you still get all that time to revise, in grade 12 because you're done with the syllabus pretty much. So grade 11 was a year. And we didn't get this. Wits came and UCT came. They sent someone from the admin office with pamphlets. Yeah, so do you guys have an idea as to what you want to do? You don't have to say, but not yet. That's fine. Okay, that's cool. So, a bit about me. Sacred Heart came in 1986, left in 1998, so grade not to matric. My entire family, my brothers, he finished in 1990. My other brother was 1994. And then me 1998, and my sister as well, 98. My sister originally was at St. Mary's, but then parents felt it's better for her to come here because it's going to be a more holistic, experience. So she then came across in, you call it grade 9, and then she finished here. So Sacred Heart is a big part of my life. It's been a big part of my life. And before we go into all the other things, I'll tell you for free now that my people skills, my ability to acquire knowledge and apply it, all of that I learned here. When I was younger, I was incredibly shy. But when I arrived at Sacred Heart, the teachers then coached me and helped me and gave me spaces where I could feel a little bit more confident and that kind of a thing. The other thing is that because of the type of environment it is, it's a place for everybody. So most schools have a predominant culture. You know those guys who go to those schools, they're at the rugby school. If you're not first team rugby, you ain't jack, right? There's other schools that have other little... The thing I like about Sacred Heart is that there's a space for everybody. If you're an academic, you can flourish. If you are a sporting person, you can. If you're into your drama and your arts, and the cool thing is that, I'm sure you guys are the same, that we just vibe. There's none of this initiation and bullying. It is there, but some of my friends with other schools, it was insane. Especially the boys' schools. You guys were getting beaten stuff, being stuffed into lockers. And so that taught me to interact with people. It taught me about multiple cultures as well, which is important because in the world, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be working with people from everywhere. And because I knew what Eid, what Ramadan and all that meant, it made it very easy to make friends and colleagues. So I finished here, went to Wits. I did my first degree, which was a BSc in genetics. Why that? Because while I was here, I fell in love with biology. You guys call it life sciences. So it blew my mind. I just love the way the body works. It just fascinates me. And at the time, the whole cloning, they were about to clone the first sheep, and it was exciting. So I figured, I want to get in on that. I want to clone people, right? So I went to Wits, did genetics, finished genetics, and then I was taken to the South African Institute of Medical Research. And when I arrived, I was a bit sad because I thought I'm going to get in there and we're going to be cloning people. But when I arrived, what actually happened was that there was a professor all the way at the top, and then there was me, this new graduate, and I had to do whatever this professor was working towards in terms of his research. And the professor that I was going to be working with was researching Drosophila, which is the fruit flies. Yeah, and my piece of that was you must just look at this little subset. So I was like, but man, don't you know that I'm here to clone and do genetics, real stuff? And he's like, yeah, that's cute. Do this. And at that point, I kind of morphed out of being an introvert into an extrovert. So the environment then was a lot of time under the microscope, with minimal interaction with people. So that didn't work for me. So I figured, you know what, I'm still young, and my brain is still kicking and firing. Let me go and do a BCom. You guys know what a BCom is, Bachelor of Commerce. So if you're interested in anything sort of commerce related, finance, investment, accounting, you're probably going to end up in the Bachelor of Commerce. So I went across to West Campus at WITS and I said, here's my transcript. I'm applying for this. I want to do economics in Y because I thought it was going to teach me how to run a business. So my plan was to do this commerce degree and then go back to the scientists and then wake them up and be like, stuff you're researching has actually got commercial value. Because many of them are just happy to research for the sake of research and get paid. And I'm like, why don't we start commercializing? So the plan was that. So as I'm doing my commerce degree and I'm now nearing the completion, they start bringing in these companies. And at that time, the commerce faculty, the jobs were insane. Like third year, you've got Standard Bank coming, you've got FNB coming, you've got Merrill Lynch coming. So there was all these, opportunities, whereas at the time with science, it was very limited. You were going to go work for Clover, and there weren't that many companies then. But I think what's changed that a lot is obviously the advent of AI and robotics, because now it's much easier to test, research and commercialize it. So it's not the case now. But back then, you were going to either work for a hospital, a medical research institute, or maybe one or two food companies, and now it's completely different. So now, obviously, now that these companies are up in my face, and I'm thinking, having money is a good idea, I then start working in corporate, and I end up working in economics and risk management. And then about 2 to 3 years in, I start realizing that, hey man, these guys pay you once a month, and that's it. So then I start to think, my salary date is the 26th. So when I make money, I get money 12 days out of 365. So I'm alive 365 days. I'm eating, I'm doing all these things, but I'm only getting money 12 days. And it comes in one shot and they pay you to the T. And when you start to work, you get taxed, right? So when I got my first salary, initially I thought, it's a lot of money. And I was like, I don't need to do anything else. I mean, if they're paying me this, and I haven't even started, this is a sweet deal. But then I moved out of home. And when you move out of home, all the stuff that your parents pay for, you start paying for. I mean, I remember when we'd finish playing sport here, take a can of deodorant, give it to your boy, he sprays it. You don't care, you don't think about these things. But then that first time I went to Pick n Pay and had to buy those things myself, I was like, what, $400? And the woman was like, yeah. And so just practically speaking, I mean, if you earn 10,000 Rand and you're employed, right, we'll just make it simple. Let's just say you're at the 40% tax rate. 4,000 is gone. You don't pay tax. The government takes it. It's gone. So people think you sit there in EFT. No, it's when your salary, the HR and payroll department really make sure that there's a portion of this money that must go to SARS. Okay, so you're down to 6K. Then if you're in a big company, they'll encourage you to take some sort of medical aid, right? And then they'll say, it's a good idea to get medical aid just in case you have an accident or whatever. You say that's a good deal because you've heard all the horror stories. Then the 6,000 becomes, maybe that medical aid is like $1,000. The 6 becomes 5. Then you're probably going to take out an RA, so the 5 becomes 4. And then you have to buy food, petrol, So the salary that's this big, you get that amount. And it's 12 times a year. So that began to bother me. And I also realized that because it's a hierarchy, the journey to the top is going to be a lot longer than what I thought. So I started to think about a business. And at the time, I started noticing that the whole bottled water thing was beginning to pick up. So I watched these movies and all the people, all the American movies, the guys would be running around with water bottles. And I was like, why is that? I mean, They're supposedly a first world country. Surely they can purify water. And then a friend of mine's father was diagnosed with a throat cancer, and then the specialist told him, the most likely cause of this is the water you're drinking. It's like, what do you mean? So he said it's the chemicals in the water. So when they purify water, they put chlorine, they put a whole lot of other things. And chlorine, just chlorine on its own, is a carcinogen. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
So carcinogen is just a fancy word for cancer causing. They know this, but they must make a trade-off between kill you fast or kill you slow, right? So if they don't put the chlorine, then you're going to get cholera and typhoid and be in the loo and dehydrate and die. Or they put the chlorine in, it's fine, over time you'll pick up something, but that's not new. But it's the most effective way to purify water at a bulk level. So I'm hearing all these things and I'm thinking, geez, that's pretty scary. And then I start thinking, okay, well, usually what's popular in the US and the rest of the world, it's a matter of time before it becomes popular here. So I start thinking to myself, well, how do I get into this space? And I didn't want to bottle water because I realized that if you do this, then you're going to be competing against Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is a giant. And Coke can afford to sell this at R1 for 13 months until you go bankrupt. So then I started looking at where can I slot myself in, and I noticed that no one was purifying water in homes. So you can buy bottled water and people purify water for an entire province and a city, but no one's purifying the water in the home. And a lot of the problems are picked up in the piping that leads to your house. So when the water leaves rainwater's plant, it might be great, but it's got to travel all those kilometers through all these pipes, through all this stuff, and all that way it's got to pick up all of that, and then it finally comes to your house. And even in your house, it's picking up stuff. So came across a company then that had these devices that are just like amazing. Like they pretty much have UV lamps, they've got carbon, so they take all the nonsense out of your water, and it does it real time. You put it in your kitchen, plumb it in, and then you're good to go. The only time you ever have to buy water is if you're on a road trip or if there's an outage.
6-year degree, so one of the longest degrees you're going to do. And after your 6 years, so when I completed it, it was 1 year of internship and 1 year community service that you have to do, right? It's now changed. It's now 2 years of internship and 1 year of community service, right? That you have to do. So you have to complete community service for you to get your basic medical degree. Once you've done that, you are then officially a GP or general practitioner, right? You're then allowed to work as a GP. You can work in a emergency department, stroke casualty. As a GP, you can assist in theatre. You obviously don't do theatre on your own, but you can assist any surgeon. A lot of surgeons do need an assistant. And they don't, like for example, if you're an orthopedic or a cardiothoracic surgeon or general surgeon, you don't need another general surgeon to assist you. You can have any qualified doctor can assist you. So for example, my dad later on in his life did a lot of assisting for neurosurgeons or orthopedic surgeons. It's another stream of income actually. Once you're a general practitioner, you can open up your own practice, run certain clinics, run A&Es and emergency departments, assist surgeons in theatre, right? And if you then choose, if you want to go further, you then have to specialize. And you choose this multiplicity of specialities that you choose. And generally those are 4-year specialization degrees, right? So it's another 4 years but remember, in those 4 years, you apply, for example, I did radiology, you apply for a post in radiology.
Where they are live streaming that event and I'm just the guy switching the cameras to make sure we capture everything properly and sort of transitioning from the show jumping to commentary and that sort of thing. So kind of like live editing sort of thing. I would never imagine myself doing something like that. So that's why I say, like, you can learn what you can from this, but you're not really going to know until you get out there at the same time. So more or less, be prepared for change. Be prepared to do a lot of hard long hours. The longest film shoot I've worked was a 17-hour shoot. So I started at something like 4 or 5 in the morning and finished at like 10 p.m. at night. That was a Wimpy TV commercial. That is not what you like love, you know. I don't think anyone here is like super passionate about Wimpy, of like this is what I want to do. I want to do Wimpy ads, and I want to see how they make the Wimpy burger. But you know, you kind of have to go where the money is, because rent is coming. Or just you need to stay active in the industry to keep your name alive, keep active. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to networking. So the way a lot of people operate is you never know who's going to be the next big hit in the industry. So you kind of have to play nice with everyone. Even if some of the people kind of suck or weird, you know, you have to be your own salesperson, and you have to be prepared to sell yourself as an idea every day on set. So, you know, if you are my supervisor or head of department, I'm going to be as nice to you as possible to show like I'm hardworking and I'm worth taking seriously, and that I'm reliable, because, you know, you might be on the next shoot.
Decision. And just like, I don't need to be anyway. My course is just as demanding. So the good thing though is you having to choose yourself. Do your values align, right? What do you want for yourself? That's what's important than anything else. Yeah.
So what advice would you give us, like, as grade 11s? Because I think we're now, I wouldn't say necessarily being put, like, pressure being put on us, but like we're having to kind of coach other grades, now that we're kind of like, what can we do to kind of like guide them towards, like, let's say their junior high, or like going into their senior high? Like, what can we do to help them to kind of maintain like a good mindset, and not like, because academic pressure gets us, like, studies gets us like really bad now. So like, what can we do to kind of like tell them, hey, don't, you know, overthink anything? Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I think it's a self thing. You need to know who you are than anything else. So I would advise that it's not about people, it's about you. You need to assess, what do I want for myself? You need to assess the skills that you have, right? And like what you said, academics do get to you, but it's also very important, as part of knowing who I am, is also finding out or evaluating what I'm good at. What other skills do I possess, right? So you might not be good in academics, but you're brilliant in sports or drama, right? So what I would advise, allow people to explore and find themselves, whether it's through sports. Find a way to express yourself in a positive way, and that's where you find yourself than anything else. Because you also realize that when the world of work happens, right, it's not just about getting the job, it's about you building the skills. And some of the skills we saw in high school, but you never really did much about. Some did, but those are the skills that actually help in terms of, also from a career choice perspective, work. I'll give you a typical example. One thing that I did when I was in high school was I thought I was going to be a doctor, until I went to go for like a hectic test with a professor. And they're like, no, you need to be doing marketing or media or being a psychologist. And I was just like, nah, I don't think so, I'm passing science. You know, you go out there, you stood in the queue at Wits, and something's like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I literally left and I went to Dublin at that time. And I said I want to study marketing or media studies. I've been happy since. So the road is not always structured. So allow flexibility. Even from a younger age, allow yourself to make mistakes while you can and find yourself, right? You won't necessarily fully find yourself now, but, you know, they always say fail forward than anything else. You never know until you try. You never know until you explore what's out there, right? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
When life comes.
My favorite parts. It's that it doesn't feel like work. When I get to work, the people I work with are very easy to work with. They're very friendly. I consider them friends. So when you work with your friends, you're basically in a radio studio having a conversation amongst friends. That's the best part. The people you meet, I meet a lot of famous people. That's really cool. And like I've gotten to the point where I'm so used to it. I don't know if you see famous people in public, like you get starstruck almost. That doesn't happen to me anymore because of the people I've met along the way. Yeah. It'll come back.
You get a lot of people that listen.
Yeah, so there used to be a way where there used to be this organization that actually measured listenership. But over the last, let's say since COVID, they haven't been doing their job for reasons I don't know. But it was a very complicated way to kind of measure listenership. But the last time it was measured, 5FM specifically, had 1 million listeners. And that would be cumulative over a week. So there wouldn't be 1 million every day. And specific shows would get the most is 300,000 people at the same time. Which is, if you think about 300,000 people all in one place, that's quite a bit. Yeah. So there used to be a way, but they don't do it anymore, and I couldn't tell you why. I think it's something to do with the contract. They haven't been contracted to, because the way they would do it is they'd have a sample of diaries that they would send to random people all over the country, and they kind of have to diarize which station they're listening to at what time, and they used some mathematics to calculate the listenership. So it was always estimates. Can't really tell how many exact people are listening at one time. Unfortunately, in 2026, I feel like there should be some form of technology that makes that.
Okay, how you guys doing? Show of hands, who's in the maths and science space? Maths and science. Show of hands, who's in the English dramatic arts, creative arts space? All right. Now I'm happy to see that. So 2 questions. When you do your production, whether it is, let's start first of all with the theater. Where is that? Is that in a building or is that under a tree?
It really depends on how you want the scenery to be.
Okay. So your conventional theater, where do you have that? Okay, which theaters do you guys know of? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's
State Theater?
State. That's what I was about.
Civic Theater? Or what's it called these days? It's called Nelson Mandela Theater or something like that. What's it called? It's called that. Y'all are dramatic arts students. Y'all should know these things. This is where you are going to be harnessing your craft. But now let's just say, okay, fine, movie set. Where's your movies going to be produced if you're going to be doing a closed movie set, not like Shaka, because Shaka was done in the bush and all that jazz, but there's some scenes that need to be done inside what? A movie set, right? Okay, who owns these movie sets?
Different owners.
Right? Now, that's fair, and those owners are called your landlords or your investors of those assets. Now, here's the thing about the dramatic arts, and why I'm passionate about the dramatic arts is that dramatic arts was one of my subjects, and we did. There used to be a lighting room up there, and I had a whole squad. I had a whole team. I had this team that was doing lighting, and a whole team that was doing production backstage, and I think it was also costumes, etc. Why this is important is that most of the time in South Africa, the actors, the producers, etc., do not own the real estate that they have their production in. And I think you guys are potentially the generation that changes that. Because what increases your production cost? One of the things. The building that you're going to do right? The equipment is the equipment. But now imagine if you have to lease out a building for 3 months because that's how long the production is going to run. Isn't that going to be an exorbitant cost?
It is.
Imagine if you owned the building that you're going to do your production in. What does that do to your production costs? Doesn't that bring it down? Okay. Those buildings are real estate. Go for it.
How does it reduce your cost, for example, wouldn't you still have to, let's say you have a house finance, wouldn't you still have to pay consecutively? I think what I'm getting at is money has to come out either way.
Yeah.
So what are the pros of having it owned and not having it owned if money's coming out either way?
I love it because that is actually a brilliant question insofar as do you rent or do you buy? Now, in buying, you would typically, in my space, acquire a property using debt. There's a cost of debt which is called your interest and your capital that you pay towards that property, right? Now, imagine two lines. The first line at the top, you've bought a building this size, just give it the number of 10 million, and you owe the bank, you ought to pay the bank for a period of 10 years, 100,000 rands a month, okay? If you had rented out that same building, you may find that you are renting out this building at 200,000 rands a month. So the differential is always going to be the exercise that you have to consider. But in the case where eventually you own this real estate, down the line, you are then a key participant of this building insofar as ownership is concerned. And what that means is that when you go down the line of your production, it means that you actually do not necessarily spend as much money as you would have in the ordinary course if you were going to lease it out. But it's certainly a checkpoint that you must make if you haven't bought the building or if you don't own that building. So it's a very important question that you're asking. Okay, does it make sense?
It makes sense in a specific scenario.
Yes.
Let's say as an individual.
Yeah.
How would that work for you?
As an individual, it's a difficult one because you will need to have the resources amassed, the balance sheet, and so on and so forth, in order to buy a building like this, right? It means that you would have had to go to the bank and raise the debt. It means that you would have had to have equity in your pocket to put down and say, bank, I'm buying this property and I'm going to be using it for this activity. But now, where the opportunity lies for the arts space and folks that are very passionate about the arts is where you gather together as an ecosystem. I like your questions because they are speaking to the finance side of things, right? And the investment side of things. Now, in that instance, perhaps you establish a company that does the acquisition of assets where dramatic arts and productions are going to happen. But around the room here, you've got directors, producers, writers, actors, okay? They are going to create a company that says, for the work that we're going to do it under your building, okay? and we will pay you the rent, but we want to be shareholders in the structure that we're paying rent to. Okay? What that means is that in the bigger scheme of things and in the ecosystem of all those activities, you eventually become owners of the production. There's a term that you will learn when you get to university or even before universities, which speaks about owners of production, right? And ultimately, when you speak about the owning of production, you own the things that are necessary to do what you do. You own the building that is necessary for you to do what you do. You own the theater that is necessary for doing what you do. You don't wait for Johannesburg to dilapidate and leave the municipality to leave the buildings to erode and have the poor infrastructure. You invest in that property because you own it, so that you guys can continue producing the best of the best in terms of art and production. Makes sense, right? So I was just latching quickly onto where the room is around real estate and linking it back to dramatic arts. But I want to just jump into something quickly here. So by way of introduction, I was sitting here, some 2001, class of 2001, that was my last year here. You guys are familiar. Who's LLC here? LLC, Learner Leadership Council. They only land you in matric. Okay, we don't change the script. So, was the original VIN number, the original default settings of LLC when it started. The original president of LLC, and we had LLC in matric, but we also had representation in grade 11, and we had class reps all the way down to grade 8. So that you can actually come up the system, so that by the time you grade to grade 11 and folks vote for you, at the end it may all make sense, and you understand how things work. But bottom line is this, in terms of what I'm talking about here. Careers versus jobs. Quickly, what is a career, what is a job? Do you guys know the difference what a career and a job is? Right, go for it.
Is a job like you're working with someone else on a
Okay, go for it, yeah, that's fine.
I was going to say that with a job is something that you have to do because you have something that you find passionate. A career is something that you've been wanting to do since something that you've listened to.
Yeah. Okay, anyone other taker? Yeah. Okay, so let's see what the two different mental models are, right? A job, you trade time for money, okay? You go in there, trade hours for your money. That's different in the art space, because in the dramatic art space, because when you get a call, you get a call. But guess what? When you get a call, you don't get a call every day. I'm not scaring you, by the way, about the dramatic arts space. You get a call when you get a call, and the difference between somebody who's going to be an accountant and somebody who's going to be in the dramatic arts in South Africa. And that's why you have the likes of Wandile Mulibatsi and some of the guys fighting the space, is to say, but guys, can you all recognize our career, our jobs as well, as we are trying to build careers? And I'll come to careers just now. Do you see what I just did there? Can you recognize our jobs as we are trying to build a career? Okay? So it's usually defined by a title and a paycheck at the end of the month. If you are not acting this month, there is no paycheck. If you are not writing this month, there is no paycheck. So that's got to change in the dramatic arts space. Okay, so skills are tied to your role in terms of that you currently hold, and you hold that for a while. And when the company shifts, you shift with it. When the company shuts down, you shut down with it, because the job is in the company. When this water is done, it's done in this bottle, right? And that's how it is with the company. If a company falls and collapses, your job is also done. So it is one with the company. Career though. So it's you compound capability over decades. Okay, Denzel Washington, one of the guys that I like, right? How is it that he is so seasoned after so many years? I don't know how many years has Denzel been acting. Who knows? I'd say probably over 4 decades, maybe. Wild guess. He's been doing it for a minute, right? So if we, but do you think Denzel goes to auditions? Denzel Washington, does he go to auditions? No. Maybe. Denzel. A whole Denzel. Do you understand? Maybe. Now, what Denzel is. Denzel Washington. He doesn't go for auditions because he's harnessed skill over a period of time. People are running for him and saying, Emuna, can you come through and come to our thing, right? So he's built skill over time. He's built a career. So he's become better at what he does over time, right? When you started debating in grade 8, there was touch and go moments, but now that you're here where you are, you now know the framework. You now know how to structure. You now know how to close, okay? Because over high school, you've built a debating career. You are better today than you were yesterday because you've built that career. So that is what you started off with the job, and you built the job, and the job became the career over time. But what is the difference between a person that's doing a job, and I'll come to real estate just now, a person that's doing a job, same job, wire, over 10 years, and a person that's moving between different activities within a job? What is the difference between those two people? Come out of varsity same time, but the one has just been doing one thing.
I think the person that does the job
It's going to be stagnant, yeah? What else?
I think with the person that's doing everything, also obtaining a lot of skills from different departments, where you have one straight job, which is
correct. So if that asks the other person to do what I do, and I've been doing it for a couple of years, are they going to be able to do it? Why? Because they've not amassed a calabash of skills. They've just got one skill, right? They just know how to write, and they know how to write specifically the news. Now, if I give this person, I say, Emuna, can you write a movie for me? They're gonna give me, the news bulletin, right? But if they've been versatile in writing, and they've written for newspapers, they've written for magazines, they've written for different publications and different producers, etc., are they not equipped to actually write something and have the context of bringing all of that in?
I don't know, what about the level of skill that they think that if they do jobs, how they write a movie and they write a book, are they even
So what happens in building a career is you find that things are interlinked.
Personally, I learned that everything you do, no matter what it is, takes time, and we just need to work through it, and it takes hard work. So just work, and we'll make it.